Hey guys, Scott back with a new beer post, I'll say today, or beer video. It's not going to be a beer dissection. There's no beer in front of me here today, but I just wanted to spend a few minutes explaining the importance of beer styles. A lot of this is going to be my opinion based on all my studies and reading and stuff like that. Definitely a lot of people will agree with me, or I know they agree with me. There will be some, there's people though that may disagree too, which is fine, and feel free to chime in underneath. But I'm going to explain why I think beer style is important. Now, first of all, when I say beer styles, there's a guideline. I'm probably going to have this popping over my shoulder or my face, and over my face is what they call the Beer Judge Certification Program. We say BJCP. So if I say BJCP, that's what I'm talking about. It's a guideline. It's about 100 pages. I was going to show it to you, but I'm sure I'm going to show you some examples over my shoulder of what we're talking about. There's roughly 100 and some odd, I want to say somewhere around 120 styles of beer, give or take. They come out with the guideline. They refresh the guideline about every 5 years. And it's a guideline I studied a lot for the Cicerone. For those that don't know me, I won't go through the whole deal. I still got to take the tasting portion. There's a whole long story about that, but I did very well in the written. But in this guideline, and they talk about each style, they go through things like history, SRM, which is the color. There's like a number, like a zero, like not a zero, like a 1 or 2 be like straw colored, 30 up to 40s, like brown to black. They talk about alcoholic percentage guidelines for each style. They go into original gravity, final gravity, which is more of a home brewing or brewing thing about the dissolved solutes in there that the yeast would act on. And they go through a lot of other things, a little history, what you would expect in, flavor profile, as far as roast, as things like that. And it's a nice guideline with it. Now, again, it's only a guideline. It's not written rule or law like we're in Germany, that they have their Reinheitsgebot, which is their beer purity laws. It's a guideline. Now, why do I think this is important to understand? Not that everyone has to read it and study it like I've studied it, and many other people maybe watching this video have studied it. But just like when you walk into, it's almost summertime here when I'm filming this, you look at the board at your local ice cream shop, and you see chocolate peanut butter cup, right? You're expecting a certain product, right? You're expecting chocolate with some form of peanut butter, whether it's actual ground up peanut butter cups or peanut butter just swirled in. You see a sherbet, you kind of expect that. You have a preconceived notion on what to expect. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. You go into your butcher, you want a porterhouse, you're expecting something, or even when you're ordering a car at your car dealership, there's a certain expectation. Well, when you go into your local not home brewery, but your farm brewery, your local brew pub, and I'll use an example of our local brew place here called Merchesfield Brewery. They got a huge board, and there's a million different beers up there, right? They brew all different styles. Well, if you see up on their board and you see a porter, you're expecting something. If you want a stout, you're expecting something, a Belgian style double or German Pilsner. You expect a certain type of beer. Like you wouldn't, if you're ordering a brown ale, you wouldn't expect it to come with a dark roast like a Irish stout or an imperial stout, or if you thought you were getting a Hefeweizen, which you expect some of that German clove and banana character from the yeast, right? You wouldn't be expecting American wheat beer to be served to you, right? There's a certain expectation. So I just feel like and there's an app on the phone. Again, I'm going to probably have it pop over my shoulder. And I've mentioned in one of my videos before about the app and just reading it and understanding the beer styles, because not that you need to study it and memorize it. I just think that breweries and not home brewers. Again, I keep saying home brewers. I've been a home brewer myself. But a lot of your local breweries should abide by it to a certain degree. That's my opinion. Okay. Not that they have to, the beer is supposed to be 4.5% to 5% alcohol and they make it 6%. They're going to be like that tool on Yelp saying, oh, they brew a beer, but they're not within a certain guideline. That's not the reason why I'm bringing this up. But if you are paying an extra amount, it's an imperial stout, it should be, kind of north of that, 7, 8%. If you're looking, you order a porter or a certain, and again, we'll just stick with stout, you're expecting roast, and then your beer comes to you and it looks more like a pale ale, or it's highly hopped, okay? Like it's an IPA. That's nowhere near what you'd be expecting when you're ordering it from the board, right? So it's more for the consumer, in the sense that even if the consumer's not memorizing everything, but you look at a board and you're ordering a porter, a stout, a brown ale, a Belgian style double or triple. I can go ramble off a Munich Helles, right, which is a light style beer. It's a lager. You wouldn't expect to be getting a brown ale, right? So having certain guidelines there. If you're getting something, an Imperial IPA or Imperial Stout, again, you want a certain alcoholic percentage there. Or if you are an IPA lover, right? IPAs are huge, especially New England IPAs. You expect a certain amount of hop flavor and aroma, right? You wouldn't want it being like a Munich Helles or a German Pilsner or something like that. So that guideline, the Beer Judge Certification Program, or the BJCP, kind of gives you those guidelines. And if you have some working knowledge of it, or even if you're sitting in your brewery, it's on your phone, okay, take a look at it. Now, again, I would not be that tool and raise your hand or email everyone and say, well, this is more like a porter, not really like a stout, or this is more like a West Coast IPA versus technically an American IPA. I wouldn't do that type of stuff, but I just think having certain knowledge of it, as well as the brewers actually being somewhere in that range. Now, my local guys here, whether it's Richesfield, West Hampton, I don't really have that problem. West Hampton Beach Brewing Company, or even Long Island Farm up the road, I don't usually have that problem with them, because they brew a lot of different styles, especially Richesfield, and they're within a guideline. Because again, it is only a guideline. Okay, there is, especially in the United States, an open interpretation. They could call it a porter, and it'd be like pale as like a American lager. They're not going to have the beer police show up at their door and take them away in handcuffs. But it's a little, if they did do that, hypothetically, it wouldn't be kind of, advertising not really the right way, on the board. So that's why I think like the certain guidelines with this Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines, and even the American Brewing Association, or the Brewing Association, BA, has certain guidelines with some of these styles too. So whichever one, you kind of have an idea of what to expect. You want a roasty type of beer with espresso, things like that, you'd hit certain beers. You wanted a Rook beer, which is a smoke beer. You expect a certain amount of smoke to it. Many times I brought up the Hefeweizen or the Weiss beer, which, German authentic ones, has a certain amount of clove and banana character because of the yeast. I don't want to be served a beer that's more like an American wheat, because I want that character to the beer. So again, those guidelines, again, they're not the law. They're not going to be arrested or fined by the government or whatever for missing it. But I just think for the consumer, it's good for them to stay within a certain window of those guidelines, even if it's not to the exact T, all right? Something's supposed to have 70 IBUs and it's 60, or, it's supposed to be more of a amber color and they're more copper. I mean, that's splitting hairs. That's BS. And again, don't be a tool because you have those guidelines and stick your nose up at it. But I just think for the consumer, it's a good thing to have some working knowledge and understanding, especially if you enjoy a style of beer that you bring home from, that's even a commercial style, and then you go to the brewery, as well as I think the brewers should stay within a certain guideline of it. So anyway, guys, more of my opinion, which is shared by a lot of people that actually work in the industry, and other beer tubers that do things like I do. And I think a lot of brewers also would agree, or they're nodding their head if you're watching this right now. So again, Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines. If you go online, it's a free download. I would actually have my binder here. I have it printed out in a binder, but it is an app on the phone too. And again, if you look for the app and you put Beer Judge Certification Program, and you are kind of a beer geek, you can type in all the styles, and it'll give you all the information from the color, things you'd expect in color, flavor, aroma, little history if you like that type of stuff. and just, again, be more of a guideline. And so when you're going into your beer store and you see it up on the board, you have a certain idea of that. But again, don't be that tool, quote unquote tool, and be like, well, you're a little bit outside the range, or that's not what it's for, and why I bring this video, this up. I just find that every once in a while you get served a beer when you see it on the board. And again, thankfully it hasn't happened to me locally here, but it just doesn't kind of fit the style. Just like I did a beer dissection on, I'm trying to remember which beer it was that was advertising as a Bock. Oh, that's right. Shiner Bock. It was advertised as a Bock, right? It was nowhere close to a Bock. It's more of a Vienna lager. And they actually they have you say that on some of the websites too. So again, if you're expecting a Bock and you're buying it and it's nowhere near the alcoholic strength and the other characters of the beer, you'd be disappointed. So that was just one example of that. So anyway, guys, Beer Judge Certification Program with the guideline. It's online for free. It's an easy download in the App Store, I think, for Droid and iPhone. And it's just good to have. And if you are a commercial brewer and you disagree with me, please, I'd love to hear your opinions on that. But again, it's a guideline. It's not a rule or law or give you a reason to bash a brewery. It's just the fact that I think if you have a little bit more working knowledge of the beer and they brew it somewhat close to style a little bit, or they're advertising it that way, or even they've just, change it. But again, it doesn't have to be like, 6% and they're 6.5 and you're like punching them in the face, or they're just a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. It's not a big deal, but you just don't want big changes. Light beers that are black, or black beers that are really light, or hoppy beers that don't have hops in them. That's the reason why. And I just wanted to put this video together to explain that. All right, guys, till the next beer video, have a great day. Take care.